Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Erik Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole. How are you doing today, wherever you're listening to this? I hope you're having a great day. I hope the sun is shining down on you because, man, it is certainly not shining down on me here in good old New York City. There's not going to be any sunshine for at least a week or so, which is always refreshing because, I mean, we're humans. We don't need sunshine, especially not when you're a holistic a-hole, because, bitch, you photosynthesize. So you got all that stored good old sunshine and what are they, photons and all that good vitamin D stored up inside you to get through the nasty winter that is May in New York City. So, thanks for tuning in. I'm not going to rant about the weather because that's lame and that's not why you listen to this. But if you are a new listener, do a quick favor for me and yourself. This will make your life way better. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast just by simply clicking the subscribe button right there in your podcast player. And find me on all the social mediums, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All you got to do is just search Holistic A-Hole, Twitter at Holistic A-Hole, all one word, Instagram at Holistic A-Hole, Facebook Holistic A-Hole, Snapchat can suck a dick, Friendster, MySpace, don't even bother. But connect with me, baby. Let's have a relationship. What I want to talk about today is something that a thought that I had that came to me while I was reading this book, which is titled Motivational Interviewing in Healthcare. And this is I'll just say it straight out, because I ain't afraid to speak the truth. The book itself is pretty goddamn boring. But what it basically is about is about a technique that healthcare providers can use when they're dealing with a patient or, a client or whatever it is, in actually being able to provide more effective, more efficient, just better all-around healthcare. And that's what this motivational interviewing technique does. And, as you read the book and you kind of learn the technique, it's all just really, in a sense, common sense, right? A lot of it is about this idea of really just being a better listener, which shockingly, a lot of doctors have a huge problem with. And I guess I can kind of understand this because, if you're a doctor, it means you went through medical school, you did your residency, you went through a lot of bullshit, you were probably, there's a good chance going through high school and college in your schooling that you were like the top in your class, that you settled for nothing less than, straight A's, that, you were just always kind of like the beacon of good academic performance. You're smart. And then as soon as you got that MD, you were like, everybody must now call me doctor. I am now Dr. Berkowitz. I am now Dr. Klein. I am now Dr. whatever. Even if you're not a medical doctor, you're just a psychologist or even freaking a chiropractor, you want people to refer to you as a doctor because you feel, at least from an ego standpoint, that you earned this, that you went through all this work. You ain't seen what I seen. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know me. So call me a goddamn doctor. This is the ego that, a lot of doctors operate under. And so at the same time, I think what that breeds is when you are constantly putting out there your authority, when you're constantly making it known that you're the authority, you're the doctor, you're the MD, you're the expert, you're pushing out. Essentially what you're doing is you're putting up a barricade for information to come in. And I think what it turns into is a lot of doctors just aren't good listeners, and it's not all their fault. I'd say it's probably 50-50. It's 50 them, 50 the system, because the system for a standard like general practitioner doesn't allow doctors more than 15 or 20 minutes per patient, A lot of these doctors have very busy practices. There's a doctor who I go to, or I went to get blood tests. Didn't have any health insurance, by the way. Went in there, fucking paid a very good rate. I'm not gonna say how much, but a very good rate called the non-insurance rate, which you can get, which anybody can get. You just don't use insurance, and they fucking hook you up because they know not everybody has insurance, and yet they can't afford $10,000 for lab tests. It's based on the market demand. But I went to his practice, sat there in the fucking lobby for like 2 hours, and the lobby was packed. This is what doctors deal with. They deal with packed lobbies, packed, waiting rooms of people, and everybody's important. Everybody's, illness or injury or, disease or whatever it is, infection, is life-threatening in their eyes. Even if it's just like strep throat or the common cold or, a fucking digestion disorder or whatever it is, it's always the end of the world. And everybody needs hours of just unbridled attention from the doctor. But the doctor will only give you 20 minutes because he needs to see all these people. So in 20 minutes, the doctor has to understand all of your suffering, all of your pain, all of your inconveniences. He has to listen to you say that shit, and then he's got to give you a solution. He can order up the labs, he can order up the x-rays, he can order up the different tests, he can do all that stuff. But within that 20 minutes, he has to give you a piece of paper for you to leave it with in your hand, whether it's for a prescription or for a referral to see another doctor, or even just to make an appointment to come back, or some kind of free sample of some cream or lotion or whatever it is. He has to make sure he gets the problem and the solution within 20 minutes of your medical care. If you know anything about the holistic a-hole and anything about health, you know that a lot of times these medical issues aren't just one thing. It's usually a comprehensive disorder, right? A lot of times it's not just the fact that, oh, I caught the flu. It's you caught the flu, your adrenals are worn down, you have too much sugar in your diet, you're eating way too much animal protein and fat, you're not sleeping enough, you're stressed. And each one of those conversations could be a 20-minute conversation in itself. But again, the doctor can only kind of, from a surface level, take in as much as he can and then give you a solution. And look, man, I'll be honest. You probably know this too. Most of those solutions are not correct. Most of the diagnoses, I shouldn't say most, but many. I don't know what the actual percentage of misdiagnosis is in healthcare in this country, but it's pretty freaking high. I would just off the top of my head say somewhere between 30, somewhere probably 30%, 40%, could even be 50%. Depending on how you look at it, it could be 50%. There's people who could have gone 1 and 2 people go to the doctor tells them what's wrong with them, and it ends up being wrong, but by proxy, the whatever the medication that the doctor prescribed just so happened to work right, versus it actually being a targeted offense of your illness or whatever. So basically, this problem that doctors run up against is they're not good listeners, and they're under insane time constraints and a lot of pressure to get a patient the correct solution 100% of the time, which is, again, just not possible, Also think about it like this. If a doctor's in his office 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 5 days, 6 days a week, on top of the fact they have to get their own sleep, they've got to get 8 or 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep and make sure they're eating right so that they're on their game. You don't want to deal with a sleepy, unhealthy, out of shape, doctor. You want a doctor who is, on their game. So take all the hours they work, all the hours they have to provide their own self-care. Where is the time for them to stay up to date on all the new science and all the new research and all the new studies that come out about health, about nutrition, about disease, all this stuff, you know? These doctors are not perfect fucking people. They're, they're flawed humans like the rest of us, you know? So we put a lot of pressure on these doctors to get the shit right, and many times they don't. And so what this motivational interviewing book does is it gives like kind of like a technique on how to on how patients should listen, or on how doctors should basically guide a conversation. And I found it interesting because again, this inability for doctors to really be able to guide and follow in a conversation and actually ask the right questions. This is the problem, man. They don't have the ability to ask the right questions to a patient as to what is going on, in their lives. Patient walks into a doctor's office, says, "Doctor, I got this stomach ache." And then the doctor is like, "Well, what have you been eating?" And the patient's like, "Well, I've been eating, fast food." And then the doctor's just like, "Well, you got to stop eating fast food. And here's a prescription for some stomach stuff. Go to the pharmacy, get it done. Okay, next." All right. Basically, what they did is they're trying to put a BandAid over this real deep problem the patient might have. Why does the patient eat nothing but fast food and junk food? These are, understanding that can help a doctor to be like, well, maybe, this person is under an insane amount of stress. Maybe this person is working 3 jobs and doesn't have the time to cook the food. Maybe this person just doesn't know anything about nutrition and eats fast food because it's good and because it's convenient, but they have no idea the damage that it's really doing. These are questions that doctors should be asking, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them just kind of stick to this, the one-size-fits-all technique, along with the fact that they spend more time being educated by pharmaceutical reps than they do actually reading studies that, again, are out there for free on PubMed and the internet. Maybe they could subscribe to their own medical journals. Maybe they could, keep up with, read books from doctors on different studies, whether it's the China study or, understanding what really is the keto diet or the paleo diet or veganism or vegetarianism, or, the science that comes out about vaccines and over-vaccinating, the science that comes out about a lot of the medications that they're prescribing to people in the first place. They're just kind of sticking to this one-size-fits-all thing. So what I guess the realization I came to when I was reading this book is that the problem with this, or let me take a step back, in this country alone, we spend trillions of dollars on healthcare. I don't know the number. I feel like I heard the number was like 4 trillion or 2 trillion. I'm gonna ask Google now how much U.S. spend on healthcare. Let's see what Google says. Google says that according to CMS, I don't know who that is, our national healthcare expenditure is projected to hit $3.2 trillion this year. $3.2 trillion. $3.2 trillion. I could say that 3.2 trillion times, and it still wouldn't register with people. 3.2 trillion. There's 320 million people in the country. Oh, man. And this was from 2015. That was from 2015. Holy shit. 2015. We were projected to spend $3.2 trillion. I would imagine that number's probably well over $4 trillion now. Take in mind that there's about 330 million people in the country. That is $10,000 a year per person on healthcare. And I promise you, many of those people don't have healthcare or aren't using healthcare. So the number is really fucked. And how does that number get so fucked? Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's so many reasons, and I've talked about them on this podcast, right? The food system, lack of nutrition in people's diets. I mean, that's right there at the top. The pharmaceutical industry, just cranking out more and more pharmaceuticals, getting people hooked on pharmaceuticals, right? Whether it's psychotropics, opioids, fucking blood pressure, sugar medication. Once you're in that world, once you're on those pills, you're on them. They're not meant for you to get off. You're on them forever, unless you make a conscious effort to get off them. There you go. But then you have like these issues, and a lot of it is tied to nutrition and pharmaceuticals, which is doctors just simply misdiagnosing people. And not even just misdiagnosing, but misdiagnosing and then not offering the right support and the right solutions. Why? Because of what we just said. Because they don't know what's going on with you. Your doctor doesn't know what's going on with you. They could take all your vitals, and yeah, they'll be like, okay, well, you eat junk food. You eat, fucking potato chips for lunch. You drink soda. You eat fast food. Okay, yeah, you need to stop doing all that. That's what the doctor will tell you. But you know how many people actually comply with that information? Very few. If you walk into your doctor's office and he takes your blood pressure and sees your blood pressure's out of control, and then he looks at your chart and then, sees that, oh, well, he's like, what do you eat on a regular basis? And you're like, well, I eat a lot of fast food. And then he tells you, okay, well, you need to stop eating fast food. Most people will go, thanks, doc. That's some good information. And then drive right to the fucking Burger King drive-thru. That's how this shit works, man. And it's even worse for people who are trying to get off of serious drugs. We talk about the opioid crisis. Wouldn't it be easy if every person who went and saw their doctor and the doctor was like, hey, man, you got to stop doing heroin. You got to stop doing heroin. I mean, there's so many things wrong with it, right? I mean, first of all, the opioids themselves alone will fucking kill you. And then, you mix that in with the fact that a lot of the street heroin you're probably buying is cut with all these fucking bleaches and agents and all this shit that goes in your body, fucks up your brain, fucks up your blood, fucks up your adrenals and your organs and your kidneys and your liver, or you're sharing dirty needles, you get fucking AIDS, whatever it is. Wouldn't it just be easy if somebody walked in and their doctor was like, you got to stop doing heroin, and then the person was like, good point, doc, I'm going to stop. And then, boom, problem solved. How many times do you think a doctor tells a patient, hey, man, you got to stop doing heroin? And then what happens? The patient drives right over to Burger King drive-thru, gets some goddamn Whopper, and then goes to the drug dealer who's probably just right around the corner from probably just there in the Burger King dumpster, and then picks up a bag of fucking heroin. As you can see, I've never actually bought heroin, so I don't know how the transaction actually works. Maybe some heroin dealers work out of an office. Maybe they work out of a van. Maybe they work out of an ice cream truck. I don't know. I'm just assuming that there are probably several heroin transactions a week that happen by a Burger King dumpster. Could I be wrong? Possibly. Maybe it's Taco Bell. Maybe Taco Bell is the more preferred dumpster of heroin dealers. You're right. I could be totally talking out of my ass right now. I don't know. Oh, maybe some of you are in the Southwest and you're like, well, what about Whataburger, Eric? Don't you think a heroin transaction can happen at a Whataburger dumpster? You know what? Great point. I am ashamed I didn't even think about that first. The fact I threw out Burger King on top of McDonald's over fucking Jack in the Box. Let me tell you something. Before I was a holistic a-hole, Burger King fucking trumped all that shit for me. Suck a dick, bitch. That's what I say. Burger King, Whopper. What am I talking about? Oh, man, I'm way off track. So here's my point. Assuming that the healthcare budget or the healthcare spending is, if it hasn't already, is probably soon to top $4 trillion. And then everybody has their solution, whether it's diet, whether it's drugs, whether it's whatever. What is the easiest thing that we could fix that would save money on healthcare, that would save money on Medicare, constantly having to spend, these fucking allowables every month on these people who are going to see their doctor for the same fucking thing every single month? What would save money on? How could we save that money? Because the doctors, to avoid this trap that doctors fall into, which is just like, well, this is the standard of care. Well, this is just, my one-size-fits-all solution. Well, this is just the way that we get you in and out of here in 20 minutes. Just fucking, what's wrong with you? You eat too much fast food? You got high blood pressure? Okay, we'll stop eating fast food. Here's blood pressure medication. Versus the doctor actually sitting there and asking the patient more pertinent questions, more pertinent open-ended questions versus like, when you wake up in the morning, do you feel sleepy? To maybe like, hey, when you wake up in the morning, how do you feel? And then the patient, instead of going yes or no, goes, well, I feel like my stomach is always kind of swirly. I feel kind of nauseous. I don't really know why. Sometimes before I go to sleep, I'll, eat like way too much, and then, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll go make a sandwich and whatever, blah, 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 blah. Now the doctor, assuming they're smart because they have the MD and they tell everyone that they're a fucking doctor and they're smarter than everybody, could probably be able to put together a not an argument, but just a better approach to solving the patient's problems. Maybe be able to put together a more comprehensive plan to help a patient versus just like, here's your medication, get the fuck out of here. This is the failure of your medical system. When everybody talks about, I should have the right to go see my doctor, what is your doctor doing for you? Your doctor is not keeping you healthy. I know plenty of people who go see their doctor once, twice, several times a year and are incredibly less healthy than I am. I don't go see the doctor unless I need to get blood tests. If I didn't need to go get a blood test for myself, not even because I needed to, but just because I think you should. I think you should be able to measure, your vitals. People who go see their doctor are incredibly less healthy than me. My health is not perfect by any means, but the doctor's solution does not equate better health. Preventative healthcare is not done in a doctor's office. Preventative healthcare is done at home every single day for you, the person who is taking care of your body or not taking care of your body. This is preventative healthcare. And you want to talk about preventative healthcare? Let's talk about a doctor, if he is going to be offering preventative healthcare, actually trying to get to the root cause of a patient's problems. And so this is why this motivational interviewing technique is so interesting, because it's a lot of, I can't get into the nuance of it here because you can go read the book. I'll put a link to it in the show description on the podcast feed. But it kind of changes the conversation because people realize exactly what I'm saying is that when patients go to see doctors, or, they see doctors in the hospital, they see doctors in their practice, they see chiropractors, whatever it is, acupuncturists, whatever it is, actually building a rapport between the patient and the doctor is incredibly important. Getting important information, being able to allow a patient to be able to talk and talk and talk and kind of come to their own conclusion as to what's wrong with them, is actually more effective at getting a patient to fix their behavior than a doctor just pretty much dictating what the patient needs to do. It's like this whole thing of what gets better results. Somebody fucking yelling at you from the mountaintop to do something, or a friend recommending to you things, or a loved one recommending to you things that you've already yourself acknowledged are wrong with you. If you have a drug addiction, you actually saying out loud, like, oh man, I see why this drug addiction is a problem. I see, I see like I can kill myself. I can end up in jail. I can lose my kids because I can't give up this drug addiction. You actually thinking that in your mind and then verbalizing it out loud has profoundly more effective or more deeper effects than a doctor looking at you and telling you, hey man, look, your life is going to end up in shit and you need to change. They hear that all the time and they go back and they fucking, continue the behavior. It takes an actual acknowledgement, and this comes from not just diagnosing, but not just diagnosing a problem, but also actually getting a patient to comply to the medication that a doctor is telling them to take. A lot of these people are on this medication forever because they don't take the medication. A lot of times, as much as anti-pharmaceutical as I am, if you have high blood pressure medication, it's going to lower your blood pressure. But a lot of people who go on this medication, they don't take it. And not even because they are like consciously like, no, I refuse to take that shit. It's just because they forget. People can't even take vitamins. And I'm probably even more anti-vitamin supplement than I am fucking blood pressure medication. But people get multivitamins and they take them and they go, this is going to make me healthy. But then most people who have multivitamins don't even take their multivitamins because they just simply don't think about it. They're in a rush. They're in a rush to get up and get out and get to work on time. If they actually truly understood, like, oh, I need to take my multivitamin, I need to take my medication, I need to take this, I need to take that. This is what's going to help keep people out of the doctor's office. And then you start slowly but surely lowering that multi-trillion dollars of cost. I can't tell you a number of how much money this would save our healthcare system. It could be anywhere from maybe $1 trillion, a quarter of it, due to more efficient, more effective doctor-patient relationships. Maybe it might save $1. Who knows, But I think it's a real problem in our healthcare system. And of course, nobody's talking about it because it's a boring issue. It was a boring book to read, and it's a boring issue to talk about. However, it's incredibly important, man. And, I don't know how you, as a fan of the Holistic A-Hole podcast, go about, enacting this change. But I think, if you are somebody who does go see their doctor quite a bit, I think you need to demand more out of your doctor. If you notice your doctor is giving you like a one-size-fits-all solution, call them out on their bullshit. If they're just like, well, what's wrong with you? Oh, I eat, well, it looks like you have high blood pressure. Well, what have you been eating? I don't know, fast food. Okay, well, you need to stop eating fast food. Look at your doctor and be like, that's it? How do I stop eating fast food? Because it's easy for me and for a doctor to be like, well, it's easy. You just don't put it in your fat fucking face. Instead, the doctor goes, well, let's understand why you make the choice of eating fast food. Tell me about your work life. Tell me about your home life. Are you stressed out from work? Are you stressed out from your kids? Do you not have time? Are you not sleeping enough? How's your relationships? I mean, all this shit. This is stuff that doctors should be digging into. So keep your doctors more accountable, man. I really think, if we get to the heart of more effective and efficient doctor-patient relationships, then you won't be going to your doctor as much because your doctor's going to get it right the first time. And that's the shit that we should be demanding. Okay, we're going to call it there. You guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I hope you made it all the way through. If you're still listening, know from the bottom of my holistic heart, I'm truly grateful for you. The numbers of this podcast have been going up and up every single week. I can't thank you enough for listening to this, spreading this to your friends and family. Be sure, if you know anybody who needs this information, who would benefit from this information, who's struggling with their health, who just doesn't even know where to start with how to fix their health, or are struggling with medical bills and can't go see the doctor, whatever it is, pass this information on to them. Pass this podcast on to them. Oh, and make sure you go check out my YouTube page, Holistic A-Hole, where I'm posting new videos every week, and sooner than later we're going to start having some guests on these podcasts, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for listening. Go hit me up on all the social mediums, and be sure to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. I certainly appreciate that, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.